Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Daily Thread. Today is November 23rd,
Wednesday morning,
2022. And we won't waste any time cutting straight to it. Around 12 o'clock our time last night, I was getting ready to go to sleep, and all of a sudden my phone started getting notifications about an attack that took place in Israel. An attack that hasn't really taken place in a very long time of this nature, which was, what came across first as a bus bombing. We later learned was an explosion at a bus stop at the entrance of Yerushalayim. Unfortunately, a 16-year-old boy lost his life, Aryeh Schoepack. He's from Canada.
Right, and a family living in Israel in Mitzpah Rimon, who's taking the bus, I guess, to yeshiva.
He was on his way to yeshiva, and several minutes later, there was another explosion in Remote, not too far away. There was 2 people who were injured there lightly. That one may have been detonated by security forces. I'm not 100% sure yet, but this is what's happening. And of course, this morning in the Gaza Strip, the animals over there are handing out candies and celebrating this attack, while we are here mourning the loss of yet another life, a young life, way too soon from a senseless, brutal attack, which is meant to inflict fear and terror amongst the people in Israel.
A bunch of people injured. We don't know the extent of those injuries. They have different categories for injuries in Israel. Then when we hear someone here is in stable condition or a critical condition, you draw conclusions. Israel, they call it either severe or light, and it means different things. How severe, how light, what any damage done to the person. But from what I read, the bombs were packed with nails and and marbles. And they were detonated remotely, probably by a cell phone. So
that means that the person who did this is still out there.
It means there's a little sophistication to it. What can I say? It's a obviously, unfortunately, we've grown accustomed to it over the years. Like you said, Baruch Hashem, not recently, but
not like this.
It's a transitional time in Israel. You have to daven for the families, which we had in mind this morning, and you have to, of course, hope for pray for the recovery of those who are injured. But you also have to take a step back and view in context what's going on, that this happens at this point in time. It looks like it was somewhat sophisticated in terms of the way the bomb was constructed. So apparently the person was not a lone person who cooked it up in his kitchen, but had some what they call "quote unquote" professional help from the terrorist class. But you have to, like I said, you have to look at this from a political perspective, why it happened now. And from what I read this morning, essentially it happened now because Israel is politically in transition.
It's a welcoming to the new Netanyahu government.
The people of Israel elected by a good margin a right-wing government, and I was just reading before I came in here today that the person that Netanyahu is planning on appointing as the minister in charge of the police is Itamar Ben-Gvir.
Oh, wow.
Okay, who is very unpopular amongst the Arab and about half of the Jewish population, I should say too, but very unpopular. Because why is he unpopular? He's unpopular because they know that when he takes office, he's going to crack down on these types of things.
Well, you know what? None of the politics, of course, justify or give any credence to an attack like this. I will, turn to now a series of tweets that that as soon as this attack did happen, I saw went on Twitter from Hillel Fold. Hillel, who lost his brother Ari in a terrorist attack not too long ago. I didn't read this. I didn't read all of these yet, so I'll just read them now to you live. He writes like this: "How's your day going? Because it's 7:41 a.m. here, and multiple people are waiting for a bus stop in Yerushalayim are now being treated in the hospital for severe injuries after an Arab terrorist detonated a bomb in their bus stop. But you won't hear about it, so I thought I should let you know." And when I read the news of the attack, I asked my wife, "Did you see the news?" Her response was, what, another Arab terror attack? That's what we've come to expect another demented Palestinian trying to murder Jews every single day. I hope the new government does what it needs to do. It's sad that this even needs to be said. These were innocent Jews standing at a bus stop. They weren't soldiers. They weren't settlers. So what's your excuse now? This is cold-blooded murder, and the Arab who planted the bomb, she had the death sentence, period. But please tell me more about the Palestinians want peace, a state. and not just dead Jews. Blowing up a bomb in a bus stop and an additional bomb on a bus stop in Yerushalayim, does that sound like people who want peace? Tell me more how we should not have a fence between us and them. And anyone who thinks that this terror is not encouraged by and incentivized not by Hamas, but by the Palestinian Authority itself, please understand that the families of these terrorists will now be receiving a monthly salary funded by the Palestinian Authority and U.S. foreign aid.
Exactly. The money comes from the U.S. and Europeans largely, and like I said, you take a step back. During the height of the crisis, when there was almost daily terrorist detonations in stores and restaurants and buses.
During the Intifada.
Going back maybe, I don't know, about, what was that, 2006 you're saying? So about 15 years.
Yeah.
So they used to have the head of the Palestinian Authority on the news, and confront him with, and he would say he condemns the death or the injuring of innocent civilians.
Yeah,
that's a trick. That's a trick statement, because from an Arab perspective,
there are no innocent
civilians in the state of Israel. Not just a matter of all settlers. Every young man and young woman is born and brought up to serve in some fashion in the Israel Defense Force. If you're in Sheret Le'umi, if you're a volunteer, if you're volunteering in a home for disabled children, instead of your army service or a hospital because of your army service, or you serve in a supportive role in the military, whether it's intelligence, cybersecurity, every kid born in Israel, from the perspective with the trick statement by someone like Muhammad Abbas, every kid is considered. So he's very safe when he says that he condemns the wounding and the deaths of innocent civilians.
Doesn't mean much. I'll continue from Hillel. And let me now predict what happens next. The Arabs in Gaza will give out candies on the streets, which you see is already happening. Israel will retaliate, and then the Jew haters will come out to play and claim that Israel attacked Gaza for no reason. They'll quickly forget about this morning's terror. And this can't be said enough times. There's no equal sign between Arab terrorists looking to kill as many innocent Jews as possible and the Israel Defense Force that does whatever it needs to do to defend the citizens of Israel. Stop comparing. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Palestinian terror has zero to do with aspirations for a state or with some fabricated occupation. Palestinian terror is about dead Jews. The more the merrier. They say it. It's time we start listening and believing what they say.
So this is a challenge for the new government. They want to see what the reaction is going to be. The reaction up until this point with the Bennett government and with the even Netanyahu, when he didn't have to have complete such a significant religious and right-wing members to push him over into his majority in the government, they try to go easy on it. They try to let more Palestinian workers into Israel. Sometimes when there's an event like this and there's a bombing like this, and they say, let in more Palestinians, maybe it'll ease up the pressure on them, because there's this fantasy idea that this is because sometimes the Israelis play into the American line of thinking that this is the result of Israel being an oppressor.
I think we've been there, and it's never happened. Sharon gave them the entire Gush Katif, which is now a launching pad of missiles.
Sure.
So we've been down this road and we see it didn't work.
Sure. Prime Minister Olmert tried to give them 97% of Judea and Samaria. Ehud Barak tried to do that. Rabin and Perez tried to do that at the Oslo Accords. They try to give them everything. It's always been rejected because they don't want the state of Israel to exist, and this is a very painful symptom of that reality. Yeah.
Before I finish these tweets, I just want to say that this episode is sponsored by Preferred Van Services. Yankee Geller, the #1 choice for transportation. You're going to the airport soon, so you're going to have to give Yankee a call to get some travel there. But if you need a 15-passenger van, comfortable, nice air conditioning, don't call anybody else but Yankee Geller. That's preferredvanservices@gmail.com. The WhatsApp link is in the show notes in the description. I mean, it's simple as that. You don't have to go on Uber. You don't have to call. Yeah, your phone number is there. You could contact them on WhatsApp. So get in touch with Yankee Geller from Preferred Van Services and travel and fashion. I want to go ahead and continue some of these tweets here from Hillel, who obviously is writing from a very emotional side. He's someone who is a victim. He's a victim of terror. His family is a victim of terror. And he's very passionate about this, as we all should be, honestly. And he continues, and if it's still not clear how cruel and inhumane the Palestinian Authority is, last night an Israeli citizen, a Druze Israeli, which we're going to get to, entered a Palestinian city to fix his car.
Right.
He was in a car accident. In the hospital, he was abducted by Palestinian terrorists. His body is still being held. He passed away from a car accident, and they stole his body. The family is saying that the man was still alive and connected to a respirator when the Palestinian terrorists disconnected him. They killed him and kidnapped him right in front of his family. We're waiting for more info on the fact that he was still alive is still unconfirmed. Whether he was still alive or dead when he was abducted, it is important that you understand that these Palestinian terrorists walked into a hospital and the Palestinian Authority, right before everyone's eyes, they stole a body. How sick can that be? This isn't human. These are animals.
Well, listen, I mean, we mentioned it in a previous context a few days ago about, 20 years ago, by the Oslo Accords, 1993, I think it was. They asked Mohammed Abbas again, who's serving in his, I think, 18th year of a 4-year term as
rightfully elected
as the head of the Palestinian Authority. They asked him how is he going to deal with the terrorists? How's he going to fight terror on what he calls the West Bank? And he said he gave them all uniforms and guns, and he made them policemen. So to him, terrorism was dealt with. There are no more terrorists. But this is exactly who you're dealing with. Now, this person, whoever planted the bomb, they'll be tracked down, and it'll be found out. I saw this morning on one of the Israeli sites that they suspect that it comes out of someone that planned it in Turkey. Because the higher-ups in Hamas, they live in Turkey, where they're protected.
Oh, wow.
They don't want to be in Gaza.
Yeah.
It's dangerous in Gaza. They don't want to be in Jenin. They don't want to be in Ramallah. It's dangerous in those places. But so they live in Turkey. But Israel has had better relations with President Erdogan of Turkey lately, and of course there has to be a conversation between Prime Minister Lapid, who's still Prime Minister, by the way. I don't know. I don't know when the actual transition takes place, but it's supposed to be soon. But this is also timed at that point where there is a transition to the new government, and again, it comes back down to challenging Israel to crack down on the Palestinians, because let's look a little bit up the road. Once Prime Minister Netanyahu gets comfortable, which should be very quickly, he should be able to be reaching out in very short order to the Saudis and the Qataris, who we discussed yesterday. And it's the worst nightmare for the Palestinians, for Israel to enter into a peace agreement with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is the richest, the largest Gulf Arab country, and they've always been the supporters and the patrons of the Palestinians, but they're sick and tired of it, because there could have been peace. Yeah. There could have been independence for the Palestinians to some extent. Netanyahu always said it himself. He's not against a so-called Palestinian state, but we're against it because we know it's not possible. Well, we know it's not possible.
We see from something like what happened this morning that it's not possible.
But when you have to understand, when Bibi Netanyahu says a Palestinian state, he knows that the Palestinians will never agree to it. So it's safe for him
because
to say
he's not going to be offering any more than was offered to him in the past that was rejected.
Number one condition of any entity that you want to call a state has to be demilitarized. That means no weapons. They're not going to agree to that.
This just in. Lapid vows that he will find the Jerusalem terrorists. He'll bring back the Druze boy who was killed and kidnapped in Jenin. So Israel is dealing with multiple, terrorist situations right now. There's what happened yesterday, which was going to be the headline story of that Druze boy that was kidnapped and killed. But this morning's attacks obviously, jumped to the forefront. We would be remiss if we did not mention the Nisim that did take place this morning in Yerushalayim. Right, yeah. The CCTV footage, which we will not show, of the attack this morning showed that a bus full of people who boarded the bus literally 10 seconds prior, it pulled away from the station and the attack and the bomb went off. 10 seconds. And the Thedailythread phone this morning around 5 a.m. received this voice note, and I'll play right here.
Good morning, Nachi. How are you? So I'm a Stalin that lives in Givatzev. And this morning, by one of the attacks, there was a Stalin Bucker on the way to Yeshiva. And his mom is there. Nothing happened to him. Only a small piece of metal was thrown into his hat. I'll send the video of his hat. And after davening, the boys, they made a dance. It was unbelievable. Crazy story. I'm sure you'll talk about it today in the Thread. How mamish a minute before the bomb went off, a bus full of people left to stop. It was mamish Nisim from Al Zayton. And this is a Stalin boy that lives over here, his mamish and Nisim.
I'll play the video over here. You can see the shrapnel.
יוסי, תראה, זה הכובע של הבן שלך, קיבל רסיס בתוך הכובע, רק תראה. הנה, שים את זה עליו, תראה. הוא פשוט ניצל, יש לך ניסים, קיבלת פה בן בחזרה. אתה חייב לעשות את הסולה סוידואה, הריזיק הסולה סוידואה, ולתרום עכשיו 180,000 שקל, זה לא פשוט, אתה מבין?
So that's, there are tremendous nisim that took place.
Let me say this. We're big supporters of Israel, of course. There's a lot of students in Israel. A lot of our people from this neighborhood and other, densely populated communities around the United States and the world have girls and boys studying for the year in Eretz Yisrael. And I've been there when there have been terrorist attacks. Baruch Hashem, I was never really close proximity. But you know what? When you're living in Israel, when you're visiting Israel and it happens, you can't tell on the street that anything happened. Things are more tense.
It's desensitized.
You know what? I remember when your sisters were in seminary 20 years ago, 22 years ago, when Dini was in seminary, she used to call me up. She was in a tough year, I think. This was the height of the Intifada, one of the Intifadas, 2002. And I was always monitoring Jerusalem Post, and as a matter of routine, every day, Aryeh Schoepack, all the Israeli news sites. And I see the second that there's an attack, and then his sister used to call me and say, I hear fire engines. Did anything happen? She's there in her dormitory in Israel, in Yerushalayim, and they don't know what's going on. You could be sure there's people standing at bus stops right now.
Well, I think that
getting on buses and going to work and going to school and coming home and going shopping.
What should they do?
No, it's a good thing. That's the resiliency of the. It's a side by side that there's a tragedy and people are mourning and we're hurting, but there's a resiliency. There's a countrywide resiliency. There's a national resiliency that inspires people to march on, to carry on.
I hear you. It's really disturbing. If anybody wants to see these tweets from Hillel, they can go to Twitter and check out his page. But I'll just end off. I'll skip the last few. I was just told by a good friend that his daughter was one of the victims of this morning's attack. She's okay, thank God. But these are not numbers; they are people with families. An event like this changes their lives forever. How the global press doesn't talk about this is sick. You know what scares me most? How many normal people justify terrorism when the target is Jewish. Go read the replies to my tweets. Tens of people justifying today's attacks. Right. Sick world we live in.
That's
and
right.
It's true. I mean, what happened, and here's another tweet from someone named Cassie Dillon. The funeral for 16-year-old Canadian yeshiva student Aryeh Schoepack is taking place in Har Nof right now. He was murdered earlier today by a bomb in Jerusalem at a bus stop. Obviously, his levaya was attended to by many, many people. And I did see that this morning some government official from Canada did condemn the attack.
Okay. The Americans have been silent, but
of course, because
America has their hands full here with their own brand of terror.
It's true. Last night in Chesapeake Bay, Virginia, there was an attack in a Walmart. I wouldn't call it an attack. It was a disgruntled manager of a Walmart who walked into the break room and he murdered six employees and he injured another 4. Right away, it was being deemed as a mass shooter.
So President Biden already made a comment this morning about those murders, saying that he needs greater gun control, which seems to be one of the biggest puzzles. You have Governor Huckle in New York is always talking about gun control. Senator Schumer is always talking about gun control. President Biden, of course, is talking about gun control. But, that's for law-abiding citizens. If a person is bent on doing something criminal, or a person has murder in his psyche, he wants to kill somebody for some reason, he's not going to pay attention to what the law is about getting a gun.
Yeah, well,
he's not going to apply for a gun license and wait to be approved 30 days before he commits his crime or kills somebody. This is a criminal element that we're talking about, and this requires different approach than just legislation that limits the time and the background checks until you get a gun. What about guns that are stolen?
Yeah, well, we see that it happens all the time. Here's a tweet that I saw from Hadassah Eisenstark. While candy is being distributed after Jews are murdered on the Palestinian side in Yerushalayim, people are giving out drinks to those who are stuck in long traffic jams due to the roadblocks since the terrorist attack. This is who we are. This is who we want to be, and this is our moral and Israeli identity. And the White House just a few minutes ago issued a immediate release This comes from the White House, and it says as follows. This comes from Karine Jean-Pierre.
Spokesperson.
We condemn unequivocally the acts of terror overnight in Jerusalem. The United States has offered all appropriate assistance to the government of Israel as it investigates the attack and works to being the perpetrators to. Yeah, well, they had a typo. Well, they had a typo in the White House immediate release.
They mean bring the perpetrators, yeah.
And maybe they should have looked that over.
Yeah.
Works to bring the perpetrators to justice. Maybe Joe himself typed this. We mourn the reported loss of life and wish a speedy recovery to the injured. The United States stands with the government and people of Israel. As President Biden emphasized during his visit to Israel in July, our commitment to Israel's security is ironclad and unbreakable. And to be honest, that's just some lip service right there from the United States government. Thank you very much.
That's an improved statement from what we generally get.
But what are they going to say? What are they supposed to say? You're right. President Barack Obama used to say, calling for calm on both sides.
Exactly.
Calling for restraint. He used to treat us like fourth graders. You're right.
That's right. So I'm listening very carefully to you reading that because I hadn't seen that before. And somebody who understands the dynamics of what's going on in Israel and the Palestinian conflict, someone in the White House wrote that who understands what's going on. I always think that people in the White House that, went to yeshiva till 6th or 7th grade and then dropped out, so they know something.
Well, someone who doesn't know how to spell bring, I guess.
Well, that could be from which news?
No, it was a screenshot of the release. It was a screenshot of the release.
Well, you get those things out in a hurry and nobody proofreads them. When you put out a newspaper, that could happen sometimes too.
That's true. I mean, here we're recording this, and if anything goes wrong, you could always edit it out. Yeah. Obviously, this morning, Yair Lapid, he gave a statement on what's going on.
Well, they want to crack down. I don't know who.
The state of Israel has been dealing with terrorism since the day it was founded. Our enemies need to know that we stand united and strong against them. We are one nation that knows how to stand together against those who seek our demise. It's like copy and paste. Like we've had these same.
Yes, they know where to get the statements from. But you know what?
Was it on Fiverr?
I saw before I came in here also. Galei Tzahal, Israel, the military radio reported said she's blaming Ben Gvir for the terrorist attack because they want to assert themselves. The criminals, terrorists want to assert themselves and challenge Ben Gvir.
Blame the victim.
What are you going to do?
Blame the victim. That's good. No, that's good. Blame the victim.
Because they know if Ben Gvir is going to close the territories, which has happened. They close the territories, no workers can come in. It hurts the Palestinians. It hurts Israel.
Tell me. We had this discussion not too long ago. Unfortunately, from a different terrorist attack where 3 people were killed.
Yeah.
And I had said on this program that what if we start playing these games that they played with us? Like, what if we start saying, hey, you can't come to work today because, you guys are killing us. I know you're going to say, well, it hurts Israel. Yeah, but it doesn't hurt Israel more than having to bury a 16-year-old this morning.
Absolutely. Nachi, you're not going to get me to be on a different side in this case. But I have to tell you about when Rabin was prime minister 20-plus years ago, there was a case where an owner of a business somewhere in the Shomron was murdered by one of his Palestinian workers. He was shot in the head and killed. And the family was sitting shiva, and the government officials came to be Menachem Avel, the family, and they closed the territories down. There were no Palestinian workers. And this family, who lost their father and the CEO of the business, said they had a lot of Palestinian workers, and they said to one of the ministers that came to be Menachem Avel, can I talk to you for a minute? I know you closed the territories, and we appreciate that. But could you let our workers in? Because our factory is paralyzed. Could you let our people in? So you see, there's a unity, and there's an anger, and it's appropriate, but then it has to be implemented on the ground somehow. The Schoepack family in Yerushalayim, I think they live in Mitzvah Ramon is what I saw. No, I'm not sure if I saw that. But he was in Yerushalayim.
On the way to yeshiva.
What?
On the way to yeshiva.
On the way to the yeshiva. Listen, I don't know if you were a baby, but there was days when there was bus bombings of kids going with their backpacks to yeshiva, to school, when buses blew up. 19 killed, 22 killed, and so on and so forth.
It's really just unbelievable.
It shouldn't be tolerated, and hopefully with the influence of someone like Ben Gvir and the other members of the government, especially, when it hits your own people, maybe it's not right, but maybe you're more sensitive.
Yeah.
That Nebuch, a yeshiva kid, loses his life. A 16-year-old boy loses his life. Maybe some people with a little bit of influence from that community that are in the Knesset will pay some more close attention and take some serious action. But like everything else, I hate to say this, but like everything else, it happened right now, and our blood is boiling.
I think that
it's gonna calm down.
That's the problem, though. The problem is that it's going to calm down. But for that family, it'll never calm down. For those 18 people who are injured, which, by the way, you brought up a good point. I know in Israel, in America, we like to think, an injury, maybe a scratch and a bruise. When you're walking away from an injury at a terrorist attack where shrapnel came out, an injury could be loss of limb, an injury could be loss of mobility. It could be many things.
We both know we both know parents of a young lady that lost her life in the Sparrow bombing in 2001. Remember? I think you spoke to her father.
Yeah. Arnold
Roth, and he's in America. They lived in America. They made Aliyah in the 90s, and their daughter Malki Roth was lost her life in Sparrows, right on the corner of Jaffa Road and King George Street. It's a bakery today. It's no longer a pizza shop, but they know where the person that brought the bomb to the location is. She's living in Jordan,
being harbored.
She's being protected by King, whatever his name is, Mohammed, Abdullah. I'm not sure who the king is today. Abdullah?
Do you just guess those names?
No, it's one of them. I know it's Muhammad, I think.
Okay.
You'll edit it out.
I'm not editing.
You're not editing it out.
We don't have enough time to edit.
Then look up who's the king of Jordan.
No, they'll call us if they have an issue.
The Jordanians are going to call us. Anyway, it's what? It's 22 years, and all he wants is that the legal process should work. They know where the murderer is. He killed this guy. No, it's a woman, actually. This woman, she killed an American.
She killed many Americans.
She killed an American.
She killed many people.
But she killed this American girl. And this American girl's parents are following up and not letting go.
Yeah.
They want her murder.
Over 20 years and they haven't gotten.
They want her murder to be brought to justice. And there's no cooperation. There was no cooperation in the Bush administration. There's no cooperation in the Obama administration. They just want her to be extradited to the United States. Well, guess what?
There was no cooperation in the Trump administration
and
either.
The reason she's told that they can't cooperate is because they don't want to disturb. They don't want to create tension in the U.S. Jordanian relationship.
As we wind down this episode, I'm just going to play this segment. Rabbi Aryeh Pilchowski, whose 18-year-old daughter Naomi was among the injured. And this morning's terrorist attack was on J24 News, and this is what he had to say.
Look, I'm not a security expert. I don't know. The natural reaction as a father, I can tell you, is that I definitely want security stepped up. I don't want any other parent to experience what I had this morning. And there's families that are a lot worse than me. Families that we saw in the hospital that are a lot worse than us. And unfortunately, there's a family planning a funeral now with a child that's only 4 years younger than my daughter. So I don't want that to happen. Whatever steps have to be taken to make sure that nobody else goes through this.
Those couldn't have been said better. Our thoughts and our tefillos, our prayers go out to the families who are affected by this, both here and there, and
sometimes you could misinterpret it as empty words. But when a man like that says he doesn't want to see it happen to any other family, there are practical steps that could be taken by the Israeli government that literally cracks down. It doesn't have to be permanently. But you crack down to the point where the leadership within those communities take control of these people and make sure that they eliminate this type of activity going forward.
Yeah, well, that's our daily thread for today. Unfortunate news out of Israel. We hope we can share
in the future.
Better news ahead. Please go ahead and like, subscribe, leave a rating on this podcast, The Daily Thread. Of course, you can sign up to The Daily Thread on WhatsApp. The link is in the show notes in the description. We have a few thousand people already subscribed, seeing our news every single day. And if you'd like to advertise on The Daily Thread, either on WhatsApp or on the podcast, please go ahead and message us on WhatsApp. Hit the link in the description. And, of course, you can email us at thedailythread@meaningfulminute.org. Have an amazing day, everybody.